Hey y'all, Dave Vascos here. A while back I did a video on getting R30 with 2x6 rafters, and I got a lot of comments on how to cut the foam board we used in that video. So today I've actually done a comparison test on cutting all this foam with the different recommendations, and the outcome is surprising. A lot of good suggestions, a lot of interesting stuff today. And there is actually one tool that can do it all, and it's not that expensive. So stay tuned. Alright, so I don't want to waste a lot of this because all the little bits and pieces we cut off will be around for a really long time, probably. So I am using these scrap cutoffs to start with. These are all too short for me to do anything with unless I cut them this way, 22.5 inches to fit in between joists, but then you got to spray a bunch of foam around them. So what we're going to do is use these 4-foot strips, and we're going to make all our cuts this way. So we're doing all 4-foot cuts with all the different types of cutting devices and see how that works out. If we run out, we've got more foam up there and full 4x8 sheets, but I really hope we don't have to get to that because I don't want to waste all that foam. I just hate the thought of all these foam scraps sitting in a landfill somewhere for a long time. So trying to make this as eco-friendly as possible. Some of you recommended scoring and snapping the boards like drywall. So here's the utility knife. This is one of my own thoughts. I've sharpened the edge of this 5-in-1 tool, and we're just going to see if that works almost as well. I don't think it'll work as well as this. And we're going to start off with these because when you score and snap things, it works better if you have a little bit of leverage, so you can work with a little bit of wider board. So we're going to do that just to be fair. Typically when you snap drywall, you use a drywall square. So that's what we're going to try to use with this to make it easier. Wow, look at that. I have to say I am totally surprised with how well that worked. It's not a perfect 90. It actually slopes this way on this side, and then if you go down to the other side, it slopes the other way. But, man, that is a pretty clean break. But we gotta test some other stuff. Next is the sharpened 5-in-1 tool. We're gonna try to score and snap it the same way. Definitely a more jagged cut. Let's see how it snaps. Clearly, the 5-in-1 tool is not nearly as nice a cut. Maybe if I got it sharper, but if you have a cheap utility knife, why not use it, right? So far, looks like the utility knife is winning. Next up, let's try the sharpened putty knife or taping knife. Hey, I'm actually really hopeful about this one. That made a pretty neat line, and it actually went very deep. Alright, that made a good cut. The second cut wasn't as good. I'm wondering though if we can just snap this backward without making a back cut. I've seen that done sometimes with drywall, but let's see if we can do that. We'll make one more cut, and I'm sure if this works with one of these, it would work with any of them. Once you cut the front, and you can just snap the back as well. I don't know. Let's see if it works. Might cut out a step. That way. Nope, guess you can't snap it backward. Once again though, it made a beautiful cut. Alright, now we're going to try some of the manual things that cut all the way through. You obviously can't score and snap with a utility knife right in the middle of one of these boards, but you could jab all the way through and cut out a nice little square hole with some of these things. We'll start with a kitchen knife. For these, we're going to start by marking a line and then trying to follow it with the cut. The knife makes a fairly neat cut, but the thickness of it, and this is a fairly thin knife, this is what I actually use to skin fish, but it binds up in the cut because it cuts, you know, it's obviously just splitting the stuff, and since knives have a somewhat wedge shape, the top wants to bind up, so you've really got to kind of muscle it through there. Let's try this snap-off blade utility knife. So the recommendation was to extend it as far as you could and then just cut it, just like a knife. That actually worked pretty good, and it's probably my fault that I just didn't get the angle of it right. I was a little too shallow on my angle and didn't get through the back of the paper at the same time, but it didn't seem to bind up like the knife. It cut pretty easy. I didn't have to muscle it through there, and I think had I got the angle right, it would have cut through on the first pass. So that is an excellent choice. Next up, this is actually an official insulation knife made by Fuller. That is a mean looking knife there. Let's try it out. I've just got to say, I don't know if you can hear this. This thing is very sharp. Very sharp. Hate to walk up on somebody in a dark alley with one of these things. So it's got two sides, so I'm going to try the closer serrations first, and then we'll try these broad serrations second. It does not like this side. Once it gets this, I don't know if you can see the angle on that. Once it cuts it, it's just got too fat of a blade to get through it. This doesn't work well at all. Let's try the other side though. We're just going to continue this cut. I tell you what, it's not even worth trying to go on with this. It is so hard to cut. It's actually, I feel like it's dangerous. I feel like I'm about to like jerk it and stab myself or something. So I'm not recommending this. We're gonna go ahead and throw this one out. But you know, in a survival situation, this might actually be something good to own. Next, we're gonna try this little Irwin dovetail saw, detail dovetail saw. All right, it's a little too flexible to push back through the board. The board has so much friction that it binds up, as you might have noticed, and flexes back on you. It also seems to gum up the teeth with paper and foam. So, unless you're just cutting out a small like electrical box or something, let's see if we can plunge it. No, wouldn't recommend it. Let's move on. Let's try the bigger pull saw. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to finish this cut so we don't waste it. I think you'll be able to tell if it works good or not just finishing up this cut. If you can't tell, or if I can't tell, we'll start over with a fresh sheet. Okay, that starts gumming up the blade. I think that would affect the cuts, the future cuts. There's paper hung in there really good. You actually have to pull it out. So, cuts here and there, not too bad, but look at how messy this cut is. I mean, it's got, just like, see all that? It just makes a mess. I think almost anything with these saw blades that cut like that, they're gonna end up making a mess. Let's see, what's next? We can try the big hand saw, but I think we're gonna be in the same boat. But let's do it just to be fair. That worked better than the Japanese saws. Better than the pull saws. But it still does look like after a few more cuts, it's going to end up gumming up the blade. And it also did make a mess. So let's see what else we got. I think now we're getting into the electric stuff, the power tools. Let's try the electric kitchen knife. This is a Hamilton Beach. I think we found this in someone's storage building we were cleaning out. So the way it works is it has two knife blades side by side, and they move in opposite directions to saw through something. It just doesn't have the power or the speed. It's so thick it gets wedged in its cut, just like the knife. What else have we got? Let's try the Jigsaw with these supposedly foam cutting blades, insulation cutting blades. I don't know. This is what was recommended when I looked up on the internet blades to cut foam. They're like a serrated, not even a serrated, that's like a wavy knife edge. So let's put that in the Jigsaw and try that out. Wow, that actually did work really good. That made a smooth cut. It was fast. Of course it's noisy and it's a power tool, but so far, as far as the power tools go, that is in the lead. I don't think it's faster than scoring and snapping it yet, but that is not bad. What's next? I know. Reciprocating saw with a metal blade. That was recommended as well. So we'll pick that long metal blade. Brand new right out of the box. Power blast. This is also going to feel a little bit dangerous wielding this big reciprocating saw while trying to hold the board at the same time. But on a job site, you know, it's not very likely you're going to be clamping this to a table or something to cut it. You're probably going to be doing it like this. At least I would. You know, I don't recommend it, but I would probably cut it like this. So I'm going to cut it the way I would probably cut it. That was very fast. Okay, Paco. What is the matter? Very fast, but pretty messy. You can see, got the crumbles once again. I think most of that right there is from this saw. But it did not gum up the teeth either. So it looks like it would be pretty reliably consistent to make those cuts. So if you don't mind the mess and you already have a reciprocating saw, not a bad idea. All right, next I guess is the Skilsaw. I'm gonna wear a dust mask for this because this is gonna blow some stuff, I think. The first Skilsaw cut we'll make is with the regular framing blade that's in here. It's actually, yeah, it's pretty sharp still. Alright, cuts cleaner than the reciprocating type cuts and the hand saws. It's actually a pretty smooth cut in most places. It does definitely make some fine particles. Definitely want to wear a mask, but it actually, you know, it's not as bad as I thought I remembered it being. When, you know, I thought it was pretty messy, and it is a little messy. I don't know, let's try it with the blade in backward. Running it backward is not as clean a cut. Does okay in the foam, but it really tears up the paper. Alright, let's try the fine tooth. Okay, this is the fine tooth, 140 tooth OSB plywood steel blade running in the right direction. That's all particulates in the air. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you right off the bat, I'm still wearing my mask because that is such a fine dust it put in the air. It cut quick, but I just don't like that fine dust. You can breathe that in really easily, at least the stuff that, you know, chops it into little chunks. You know, I don't think that's going to do as much damage as this fine, almost powder-like dust. So, not recommending the fine 140 tooth blade there. I'm not excited about doing this, but let's go ahead and run it backward. is a pretty ragged cut. All right, here are my thoughts. The easiest way and cleanest way to cut it seems to be with the utility knife. And obviously either one of these would work the same, just scoring and snapping. If you only had one tool and you were doing it all by hand, this would probably be the tool you want, because this you can't cut out for electrical boxes and stuff, but this you can put it out deep enough where you can go all the way through the foam. So if you had this, you could score and snap and then cut the back just like drywall, and then use it to actually cut out boxes and stuff. So this is the best all-around hand tool. Now, having said that, if you need to make perfectly square cuts, because obviously when you score and snap, the cut is not going to end up perfectly square. So if the cuts need to be square, I would recommend, for cleanness, the Bosch blades, whatever these are called. I guess it's a Bosch T313 AW3. Now that would cut square, it would do the plunge cuts, it could do the boxes and everything, and it can do it pretty quickly. So I would recommend that if you need if you like all your cuts to be neat and square and fast. But if you're looking for square and fast and you don't care if they're neat, I would recommend the Skilsaw with the framing blade running the right way, with the teeth actually cutting through the foam. But for an all-around great foam cutting tool, up to 2 inches at least, snap off utility knife. Alright, well, thanks for watching. That concludes the test. Y'all let us know in the comments what you would use and why, and maybe there's something we haven't even thought of. Wow, you just can't beat that. Just can't beat it. That is a great tool. And that is a great tool. Yeah, when I go back to cutting this stuff again, these are the things I'm going to be using.